What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another match preview as decimated Spurs go up to Molineux tomorrow. 12:30 kickoff against Wolverhampton Wanderers is going to be a very difficult game. We've got the match preview for you today. We've got the predicted lineup for you, which is going to be very interesting. And then we'll call it a day. But in terms of the match preview, let's look at let's start off with what is actually going on, because there's a lot to get through. I mean, Maddison, he says, we're not going to probably see him again this year. The same with Mickey van de Ven. We're going with a suspended Romero and Destiny Udogie. Richarlison's out as well. In terms of the positive news, Pedro Porro looks like he's going to make it. Ben Davies looks like he's going to make it. And it's a sorry state of affairs when we're so desperate to see Ben Davies play. As much as, he always gives his all, he's just nowhere near the quality of Destiny Udogie, is he? So I think it's a massive plus that he's fit, to be honest, and a massive plus that Pedro Porro is fit. But that brings who's going to play centre-back, who's going to play the creative role, which we'll get onto in a minute. But there's a lot of questions to answer, isn't there?
Lots of questions for Ange to deal with, considering his team selection in this one. I think the whole season, the first 11 has pretty much picked itself, barring maybe, the odd change for Richarlison or Brennan Johnson pretty much has been the only real decision in our starting 11. Every single position, when you look at our starting 11, has been so solid, and everyone's pretty much got the role in terms of our starters. And in one game, we've lost 5 starters in one game, which is crazy to think about how quickly things can change in football. Now we go into this game against Wolves, who, to be fair, have picked up some good results at home, beat Man City, they drew recently with Newcastle 2-2. They gave Liverpool a very tough game. I think Liverpool needed a late winner to beat them at the Molineux as well. So we can now go into a game against Wolves, which is going to be incredibly difficult, with 5 starters missing. But this is where I guess managers a lot of the time earn their money. They got to find solutions, find replacements. And the one thing for sure that we know is going to happen is Ange isn't going to change the way he's playing. He's not going to adjust his system just because he got players missing. He's going to put the players in, and they're going to have to adapt to the way Postecoglou wants to play. And part of me feels like, yes, it's devastating that these players are missing, and it's going to be a big hammer blow, especially people like Van de Ven and Maddison, who really accelerate the structure and the process that we're going for. But hopefully these players coming in see it as an opportunity to impress and try and earn their spot, and gives allows these fringe players to feel more important in the team. And if we can get them playing to a certain level as well, that's only going to benefit us long term. So as much as it's devastating these players are out, and I'm sure it will hurt us, especially when we're playing better teams, hopefully like this weekend, when they get the opportunity, they can stake a claim for the first team, and that's how they got to see it. Yeah,
definitely. Spot on, to be honest. But look, let's look at the form of the two clubs. Wolves, up and down form, to be honest, but I have been impressed with the way Gary O'Neill has set them up, especially in the bigger games, like you mentioned, getting positive results. Can we really take too much into account of the Spurs form going into it with the injury problems that we got?
Obviously the form doesn't mean much because it's going to be a very different team, but I think the confidence in the camp will still be going into this game thinking we can win the game. I don't think the players will be going into the game being scared about the players missing. They'll be confident that we're still playing well the way we're playing, and that the way Ange will set us up, it will be to try and win the game, no doubt about it. So obviously it's going to be a different team, but we've seen other teams, like, when Brighton have players missing, they find solutions sometimes. They put Gross at right back or whatever, and sometimes it works. Same with Man City. They've also had problems, and albeit they've probably got better depth than us, obviously, but they also, when they got injury problems, can find solutions. So I'm sure Postecoglou will be thinking the same way.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, you saw with Man City when Rodri was out, they lost 3 games, and he's very pivotal to the way they play and so important to them. And that's kind of a similar way how important Van de Ven and Maddison are for us. Maddison, we haven't seen it, correct, but I think that we can safely say, like, without Van de Ven, how do we play this high line, and how do we combat what he's been bringing to us this season with his pace and the recovery runs?
Just having more of the ball.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You just got to make sure you're even better going on the ball and going forward. But there's less room for error on the ball, essentially.
Much less room for error, and with the poorer quality members on the football pitch, Like it seems like one ball over the top, over the back of Eric Dyer and whoever's partnering him at the back is going to put us in massive problems. We won't have that recovery pace that Van der Ven brings us.
Yeah, so we got to deal with it. And I understand. I think you're right. Obviously, it's going to affect us, but it doesn't mean we can't find solutions around it. It's going to be difficult, don't get me wrong. And sometimes when you come up against better teams like Man City or even Villa or Newcastle, like the teams near the top of the table, sometimes there's only so much you can do. But I don't think against a team like Wolves that's the case.
I think a massive plus for us, obviously, coming into this game is Pedro Neto was out, because he brings the real star quality that Wolves bring. And I think if Pedro Neto was playing, I probably would say that Wolves have got a lot more of a threat than they do, obviously, without him. And I think I'm much more worried if he was there than not. And I think now the only real threat that they have is Hwang. If you bring up their predicted lineup, we'll get into the head-to-head in a minute, but if you bring up their predicted lineup, you're looking at that team, and apart from Hwang, they don't really have too much that I'm afraid of.
Yeah, Cunha's been in good form, but he's kind of a player who frustrates in the final third. Again, he's very good when it comes to taking people on and being, and his ball progression with his ball carrying ability is pretty strong, especially in the final third. But he won't be, he's not like the best when it comes to, he's very frustrating essentially when it comes to the final third in his decision making at times, and his finishing ability is very much hit and miss. So he's definitely a player who's going to hurt us when it comes to his ability on the ball, but whether he'll actually be decisive, that's another question. Hwang's obviously been banging the goals this season. 6 goals, 2 assists in the Premier League. Obviously an amazing start. I do feel like it's one of those, I think he's a good player, don't get me wrong. I think he's got a good finish, but I feel like it's one of those periods where a player's just going for a purple patch. I don't really think like this is now what Hwang's going to be and he's going to go and get 15 goals. I would be surprised. I think he's still going to finish this season in and around the 10-goal mark. I don't think he's going to score a bucket load more. I think he's going for a real purple patch at the moment, but he's definitely a player who's in good form, and players in good form with confidence you definitely got to be wary of, and especially up against Heung-min Son, his national teammate. He's definitely going to want to impress for sure.
It's the South Korean derby this weekend, Hwang against Sonny.
As you say, Neto, 100%. He has been, I don't think you can understate how important Neto has been. Because even if you think off the top of my head, some of the goals that Wolves have scored this season, I remember the 2 goals against Man City, literally Neto, both of them, he made both of them. And it wasn't even like a case of him just being at the centre of a team move. He's literally carrying the ball by himself from the halfway line, beating 2 free players and making an opportunity. Same against Liverpool when he created the goal for Hwang, literally carrying the ball from the halfway line by himself and set up the goal for Hwang. Against Newcastle, he got an assist for the first goal as well before going off injured. So Neto, he's like reminiscent of like when Spurs were a one-man team with Gareth Bale back in that season. Like they are really relying on him, and I think it told last week. They missed him for the first game and they lost away at Sheffield United, and I think that goes to show how much of a miss he's going to be for them.
Neto has got 7 assists this season. That's a crazy number in this Wolves team. 7 assists and 1 goal, when Hwang has got 6 goals and 2 assists, I think it was. And I mean, like, that alone is like probably like 80%, if not more, of what the Wolves' goals this season.
Yeah, but it's more, for me, it's more about the eye test and what I'm seeing. For example, like Haaland's obviously got loads of goals, but it doesn't mean Man City are solely relying on Haaland. You could take Haaland out of City, they'll still find a player who scores goals. Neto is literally doing things by himself without any help. He's literally beating players by himself and creating goals.
Against top quality opposition as well.
Exactly, absolutely. And so without him, I think they're going to struggle to, because the way they play, especially how they played against Man City and against Liverpool and against Newcastle, which I envisage is probably how they're going to set up against us, is they're going to be very aggressive. They're going to be looking for quick transitions, and they're looking to attack the space that Spurs leave. And when you got Neto there, who's in the form that he's in, that makes him a really dangerous threat, because he is so good when taking people on and breaking into that space, and he's really recovered well from that injury now. He looks like back in top form. His pace looks unbelievable, but without him, I'm looking at that team and I was like, how are they going to attack the space as effectively as they have been? Hwang isn't that sort of player in terms of his pace. Cunha is quite pacey, but I thought
Hwang was a bit pacey though.
He's pacey, but he's not Neto level. He's not going to really break the lines like Neto is. I'm struggling to see where that threat is from the same level is going to come from. Not to say I'm sure they will create a couple of chances, but they started with Kalajic last game. Now he's a player who's very different profile to what they've been playing in their front line in the past few weeks. Kalajic is very tall. I think he's like 6'5".
Big, tall, strong, aerial
big, tall,
ability.
strike, exactly. Good hold-up play. So it brings a different element, a different different threat. But Neto has been so central to them that there's basically no replacement for him, essentially. And I'm not saying they're now going to not be able to attack at all, but I don't see them being anywhere near as effective on the counter without him than with him.
But on the flip side of that, there's no replacement for us, for the likes of someone that can do it to the same level of James Maddison, someone that can do it to the same level of Mickey van der Ven. We've got our own, no one that can do it on the same level of Destiny Adoji, no one that can do it to the same level of Cuti Romero. We've got our own problems to deal with as well.
I would argue it's easier to manage a defensive situation than replace the talent going forward. I think. So look, you can put a makeshift defense together, and obviously it's not going to be the same level, and especially if it's on a consistent basis over the long term, you're gonna suffer for it. But I think in a short space of games, I think you can put a makeshift defense together and get a kind of solid competitive performance out of it, rather than when you take a player like Pedro Neto, who's so central to their attacking play. They just don't have that quality coming off the bench to provide that threat. So how are they going to attack the space in the same way? I agree. We're not going to be able to defend in the same with the way we defended with Van der Ven. It's going to be a lot harder to do. But at the end of the day, a defense's job is just to keep the ball out of the back of the net, and that's a lot easier to coach in a short space of time than replacing the kind of quality that Neto leaves out, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I hope so. But I mean, it's going to be, I know they've been on the training ground and they've been learning this way ever since Andrew's come in. But, Eric Dyer, ever since coming out the team, he hasn't really been playing in the high line, because he more or less, he was playing the last couple of seasons, playing a really low block football in a Conte and Mourinho system. Is he going to be able to take to it like a duck to water? We've got players like, who's going to play alongside him? Is it going to be Emerson? Is it going to be Ashley Phillips? If Ashley Phillips comes in, is he going to be overawed by the occasion? Can he come in and do it straight away? He's going to be coming up against Premier League players at the end of the day, which he's never come up against that kind of quality before, Ashley Phillips. So look, it's a dangerous game, and Wolves is always a tough game, no matter who they have on the pitch. We always find it difficult, especially at Molineux. It's a very, very tough ground to go to. So I am worried, but the one thing that gives me a bit of hope is the comments from Invert the Wing this week on social media. He says that Spurs are going to batter Wolves.
I'd love to believe that. I do think it's going to be a close game, whatever happens. I can't see it being won by more than a goal or two, maybe two if we're lucky. But I don't see a battering here. Wolves are just very strong defensively. And especially if you give them something to hold on to, like Man City did, although Liverpool did and they were able to turn it around, but like Man City did, I
don't even think they've been that strong defensively this season, to be honest. Like, they've conceded 19 goals already this season.
Yeah, but I get that's true. And but I'm looking at the games against the big teams. I know they lost 3-1 to Liverpool, but again, Liverpool needed to score in the 90th minute. They drew 2-2 with Newcastle, where that penalty was completely unfair that they got given away from given to Newcastle. That shouldn't have been given. And then obviously Man City at home, that was a really good defensive display, even though they got dominated. I think they had one shot on target and won the game 2-1, but it was a really good counter-attacking display and really good solid defensively. Man City found it really hard to create good quality chances, so they have it in them to be very solid and aggressive defensively for sure.
Yeah, and that's what worries me a bit when you're looking at the big teams that have gone to Wolves this season. Like you said, they've beaten Man City. They drew to Villa with 10 men. I'm not sure when that sending off was. I think it was at in the last minute of the game. They drew with Newcastle. But having said that, since Pedro Neto's been injured, they went to Sheffield United and gave them their first win of the season. So I guess that's something to be positive about.
Yeah, I think that was also a bit different because Sheffield United is obviously their game plan was going to be the opposite to what Wolves want.
Yeah.
So Wolves dominated possession in that game. They were the ones asked to break down Sheffield United, and they kind of struggled in that department to do that. Obviously, this is going to be much more to their liking. But again, without Pedro Neto, I just don't see, like, they've just been very effective breaking on the counter attack with his pace and dribbling ability, and without him, like, he's almost like, I've used this phrase a few times, but he's almost been like a bit of a cheat code for them this season in terms of how he's been able to counter attack, and he's been near on him. Like, no defender's been able to stop him this season. That's how good he's been, and without him, they don't have anyone who's like no one's been able to stop. They just don't have that. Has he
got the most assists out of everyone in the Premier League this season? I think he does.
I think so.
7 assists is mad, but I'm very...
And also set pieces as well. I think he's got a few assists.
I'm very happy. Well, I'm not happy he's out because I don't like to see players injured, but I'm happy we're not going to have to face him this weekend, that's for sure. But if you look at the head-to-head between the two clubs, Spurs winning it 3-2 in the last 5 games. We did lose last year. Was it 1-0 at Molineux?
Adama Traore scored in the last
that was it, bloody Adama Traore. But it's a game that, you know, is usually split by the odd goal, as you can see here. Do you see it being the same this weekend?
For different reasons, but yes, I do see it being the same this weekend because I think Spurs obviously trying to manage the injury situation. I still think we're going to play our game, and I don't think...
Of course we will.
I don't think the structure is going to massively break down in possession. I still think we should be pretty good on the ball and should be able to take the game to Wolves and open them up a few times. But again, if we do create chances and aren't clinical in front of goal, then that will give Wolves a lot more hope. And then all of a sudden, a mistake or a bit of quality from Wolves, and that could cost us the game. So we've just got to make sure that in front of goal we're clinical. But I definitely think the way Wolves set up, and I envisage them setting up in this game, I don't see it being a goal fest by any stretch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet either, to be honest, though.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do, just because Wolves, I think their attacking threat without Neto is that much worse that I think that I'm not saying we should be comfortable, don't get me wrong, I can even see them creating chances, but they're not so clinical without him. They're not even with him, they're not that clinical, but without him, especially, like, they got Kalajic, Hwang, Cunha, who are all good players, but I don't see them as players who the defenders we have can't manage in a way.
I mean, who did Dyer manage well last season? You know, he had a shocking season throughout.
Yeah, but, he's had good games before in his career, hasn't he? It's not like his whole career's been bad.
Look, he came on and did a good job against Chelsea. He did. But, I mean, it's when we kind of put our trust in him and he has to play a long stretch of games where he comes unstuck a bit. Maybe because it's his first game, he can pull out one of those performances again. But I am worried about the long term for sure. But in this game, look, I do think we can go to Wolves and win. We have to go to Wolves and win because our games after this just get harder and harder and harder. So when you're looking at over the next 4 or 5 games, this is the one where you think this is our easiest game. If over the next 5 games, we have to go there and win this weekend, don't we?
Yeah, 100%. But in a way, also, these injuries has brought back that underdog kind of mentality, hopefully. And maybe that can give a bit of impetus to this team.
A bit of siege mentality.
Together. Yeah, a bit of siege mentality. Because I'm not saying we've been getting ahead of ourselves or anything, but obviously,
we've been getting ahead of ourselves.
Look, things have been going very well, haven't they, in the first 10 games? Top of the league.
Yeah.
Everyone's been delighted with how things are going. And all of a sudden, it's like we expect wins all of a sudden. But with these injuries, people are starting to get worried again. They're starting to get concerned about, worried about where the results are coming from. So hopefully, where people are starting to doubt us again, that's where we can, pull together and it's going to be a massive result now if we get a win. Whereas if these injuries didn't happen, obviously it wouldn't be great away at Wolves, but wouldn't be seen as like a massive result. But now if we win, all of a sudden it's a big result again. Yeah,
another factor that not many people are talking about as well coming into this game, with the likes of Maddison and Cuti Romero out, you're looking at it and the leaders that we've had all over the pitch have now gone. No leader in the back line. Well, you can maybe consider Dyer as a leader because he has been in the past, but he hasn't been recognised as a leader this season. You're looking at Maddison, who's been so influential for us as a leader, as well as what he's done on a football pitch. That's been gone. Obviously, Sonny's still there, the captain of the club. But are you worried about that lack of leadership going into this weekend?
Yeah. What can I say? It's not a good thing that that the leaders aren't in the game. Hopefully, obviously they're not going to be on the pitch, but we have experienced players like Dyer. Maybe if one of Højbjerg maybe starts, or he's going to be in the squad anyway as well. We've got experience in Basuma, who's been one of the leaders in the group since this season as well. Is it a concern? Yes. Is it something that we can point to and say that's going to cost us points? I don't think that should be an excuse. But yeah, I think it's not a good situation for sure, but it shouldn't be something that we can look to say the reason why we will drop points is because of their quality, not because of their leadership, is what I would say.
Yeah, you're probably right, to be honest. But if you just bring up this injury graphic and just visualize how bad the situation is right now. Look at that. Just look at that.
It's a pretty good team, that.
It's mad. We've pretty much got a full 11 of injured players. They're even goalkeepers like Alfie Whiteman and stuff not even on this list. But, I mean, we have proper been decimated. Proper. Yeah. And Ange said in his press conference, in his whole 25 year of management, he's never seen a whole team wiped out within the space of one game.
Yeah, and it is crazy how quickly things can change, and I think it's a lesson to everyone in terms of how
never get too comfortable.
Exactly. And also what we were saying about in the summer about the need to reinforce some of the positions, because these things can happen, and now we're staring in the face of Van de Ven, who our worst nightmare, being out for a long time. Same with Maddison as well, and Romero missing 3 games. We all said there's a big chance he'll get a suspension at some point this season, and here it is. So we've only got ourselves to blame for the lack of cover, to be honest, that we have. But look, these things happen, and it's up to the managers to try and find a solution. Now, the difference between, I would say, Ange and Conte is Conte was very much reliant on the individual ability for a lot of positions for his system to work. I don't think Ange is as reliant for his system to work. What I would say is, though, the fact that he's got Maddison and Van de Ven there has really accelerated the process we've been going through in terms of how well his structure has been implemented because of these players. But it doesn't mean that it can't work without them, and I do think it can.
I hope so. I really hope so. But I do think we've been very reliant on those two players specifically, as well as Romero. And I don't know. Look, like I said, I think we can go into this game with a bit of confidence and to go and get 3 points at Wolves, especially without Pedro Neto. But it is what happens after that. But how do you see us setting up, and we'll get into the predicted lineup as well, but how do you see the game plan going? Do you think nothing changes? Nothing
changes. I think we play the same way. I think you just have to look. You have to basically have much more quality on the ball to keep possession and to maintain control of the game. Because the more turnovers you have, the more likely they're going to get runners in behind, and they're going to be playing long balls. And if you're not in a position to basically get close to the ball and you give them a bit of time, then you're going to find trouble. So I anticipate Tottenham to have a lot of possession. Tottenham to be very patient in the game. And I anticipate Wolves to try and hit us on the counter in behind, but to not do it as much as they would have done if Neto was on the pitch. So maybe once or twice rather than 4 or 5 or 6 times in the game. Well, I'd imagine. And obviously, depending on whether they take those chances that they get is the result. I'm going to back them not to take the chances that they get. So I envisage that it's going to be Tottenham, pretty much attack versus defence. Tottenham looking to break Wolves down. Wolves looking to counter on Spurs. Wolves being very compact and hard to break down. Tottenham being very patient. But I'm hopeful that we do find 1 or 2 moments in the game where we do make the difference. And I'm hopeful that we can restrict Wolves to very little chances, even with a makeshift defence. I don't think that will be the case against better opposition, but I do believe in this game. That's how I see it. So I've gone for 1-0 Spurs.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Spurs. And I'm starting to think whether he's ready or not is a different question, but the need to keep possession in this game is probably more than it has been in the past, just because of the back line and without the recovery pace of Van de Ven. And I'm thinking if he is fully fit and if he can manage the game as maybe a first hour or something, Rodrigo Bentancur, like he is so good at keeping possession, and him and Bissouma in the middle there playing together to keep possession even more so than we have done in the past. I think that could be a really good avenue for us to go down, but it's just a question of if he's fit enough to play or not.
Yeah, I mean, he said in his press conference we've got to be very careful with Bentancur. So I'm assuming that's it. That's implying that he doesn't want to risk starting him just yet. But I think when he's ready, I think I'd love him to be in the team.
That's what I'm saying. It could give us a good option in the games against the harder teams, you know, to play Bentancur and Bissouma together in that middle of the park and just give us that more control in midfield.
Yeah, he did play half an hour against Chelsea, and probably more considering I don't know how much added time that was.
It was quite a bit, yeah.
So probably 40 minutes in the end he played against Chelsea, and also looked quite good. And I thought he was, one of the better players in the end. So seems like he's getting to that stage, but as Ange said, you've got to be careful with him. All
right, well, that is our match preview. I'm going 2-1 to Spurs. Tim is going 1-0 to Spurs. Let's get on to the predicted lineup, and probably the hardest predicted lineup that we've had so far this season. And Postecoglou has been speaking in the press conference, giving us the lowdown on team news, and let's get into it.
And deep breath, and here we go. Van de Ven is out until the new year with a hamstring injury, which he picked up on Monday night, so that was a massive blow. James Maddison, Ange confirmed that the ankle injury is a lot worse than first anticipated, and he's also going to be out until the new year, but it remains to be seen when he'll be back, but that's not a good situation. It looks like ligament damage on his ankle. Richarlison has had his surgery yesterday, and he should be out for about a month, they were saying, probably out for a couple of weeks after international break, but he is out for this weekend. Obviously Romero and Udogie are serving suspensions after their red cards against Chelsea on Monday night, and obviously the long-term injuries of Perisic, Solomon and Sessegnon are no closer to returning as of now, so they're remaining out for the time being.
All right, well, let's get into it then. 4-3-3 formation as per usual. In goal is going to be Vicario. And look, he's going to have to be on his top game, to be honest.
Yeah, off the back of what was one of the best sweeping performances I've ever seen, he's probably going to have to do the maybe similar in this game, because we obviously, with Van de Ven in the team, the need to sweep as high as maybe he did on Monday night is less so, because you just got that player with the recovery runs that Van de Ven does. But without that, I think Vicario, maybe the instruction might be for Vicario, just be a bit higher, just in case those balls in over the top, because we know that Dyer's more like Dyer, and whoever's next to him is going to be more likely to be caught out than Van de Ven. So I think he might have a crucial role to play in this one.
Yeah, I'm actually so happy that they don't have Moutinho or Neves anymore, because that ball playing ability from the middle to maybe feed Hwang in would be so much more dangerous. Now they don't really have that kind of, they can't replicate that with the players that they have now. So
they've got a different type of threat. I mean, João Gomez, Lamina, they've got like really good ball carrying ability, but before that in Neves and Moutinho, it was much more about good quality passing.
Exactly. So that's Vicario in goal. A right back, Ange did say that Pedro Porro hasn't trained all week, but he will fit for this game, so that's at least 1+ coming into the game.
Yeah, it's vital. Obviously he picked up a little knock against Chelsea on Monday night in the first half, but was able to finish the game and finish it strongly as well, so really vital that he comes into this one, and he's going to have, I think, as well, the wide areas is where Wolves get a lot of their joy. Luckily Neto's not available, but still, whoever's going to be in the wide areas, whether it be Hwang or Cunha, if Porro can dominate that duel, they'll go a long way to Spurs maintaining their dominance.
Right-hand side of the defence, we're actually siding with Ashley Phillips to make his first appearance for the club. It could have been Emerson, could have been Højbjerg, who both had stints at centre-back on Monday night. But we are just going to side with Phillips, seeing as he was pulled out the under-21 squad in anticipation for this game. But it could be either or, to be honest.
Yeah, and as well, he's been on the bench a few times, hasn't he, during the season? So he's not exactly an alien to the first team this season. So hopefully he's impressed Ange enough to maybe throw him into the deep end. We saw how, early in the season, Van de Ven signed for Spurs a few days before the first part of the season, first game of the season, and he threw him in, and he just felt like he took the risk. So we're going for Phillips in this one, albeit, yeah, as you say, Davis or Emerson or Højbjerg, it could be any number of them.
I doubt Davis because we got no more left backs, but
could play Emerson there.
Yeah, I guess
Emerson left back and Davis on
or Højbjerg even.
Or Højbjerg. So there's a few options, but we're going for what we're hoping for, and that's Ashley Phillips in this one.
And that will be alongside Eric Dyer at left centre back. And it just brings up that question again that I brought up on after the transfer window shut with Davinson Sanchez, how we just let him go without bringing in a replacement. And we could have used him now, to be honest. And that's what a sorry state of affairs is when you wish you've got Sanchez and Dyer at the back now.
Yeah, and the thing about as well how solid Sanchez was looking in pre-season, wasn't he? He was looking a lot better with under Ange. So it is a shame we don't have him, but is what it is. We can't play players who aren't here anymore. So obviously Eric Dyer comes in, had a good cameo against Chelsea, albeit I did feel like near the end he was getting caught out with his lack of pace, and that was reality. But it's
going to happen with 9 men though, isn't it? To the best of players.
That's also true. With Wolves, how they play up front, hopefully he's going to be able to contain Kalajic, who's a bit more of a taller physical threat. And if Dyer's got that kind of threat to deal with rather than a striker who's pacey and behind, hopefully that's more his cup of tea.
And then to make up that back line on the left-hand side, we are going to put Ben Davis in there. Ange Postecoglou did say in his press conference that he is back from returning from injury. So that's another plus for Spurs.
Yeah, there's obviously a shout for Emerson Royale as well, who's been playing at left back quite a bit this season. But we've gone for Ben Davis, who's a more natural lefty, and didn't have the best game against Crystal Palace, but hopefully he obviously went off at half-time with a bit of a knock, so hopefully if he's fully recovered, he'll be putting a better performance in this one.
Well, let's run through that decimated backline with you guys one more time. It's Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro right back, Ben Davis left back, with Ashley Phillips and Eric Dyer in the middle of defence. I mean, that is literally only one survivor in that back four. Mm-hmm. That's mad. It's crazy how much can change in the space of a week. But let's move on to the midfield, and in number 6 position will be Yves Bissouma. And we were talking about in the preview how vital it was for us to get the ball, and he's going to be vital to that.
Yeah, and Wolves actually have a very aggressive and physical midfield with Lamina, João Gomez, Bellegarde as well in that midfield. So he's definitely going to have his work cut out of him to dominate it. But if we can do that and he can, keep possession like he has been at times this season, that can go a long way just to make sure Spurs dominate and keep Wolves out of possession and stop the turnovers. And he could be crucial to breaking them down as well with his ball carrying ability. I don't think he's kind of been as good maybe since that red card as he was before it, but hopefully it's just a matter of time before his form starts to return.
It's only been one game, hasn't it, since the red
Palace
card? Palace and Chelsea. Yeah. All right. And then in the middle, we're going to go for Pape Matar Sarr, who's obviously on really good form at the moment, and another player who's going to be extremely vital.
Yeah, and his physicality will be crucial. I thought we had a really good game as well against Chelsea and against Palace. So definitely his form has been on the upturn recently. So definitely no reason not to start him. So as well, when it comes to battling that physical midfield Wolves have, he's going to be crucial.
Yeah, and then to make up that midfield 3 in replacement for James Maddison will be Giovanni Lo Celso. I mean, there are a couple of options. We could move Kulusevski into the middle, potentially even Brian Hill could go on the wing, but we do think Lo Celso will start this game, because if he doesn't start this game, when's he ever going to start?
Yeah, that's my position. If you're not going to play Lo Celso in this situation, what's the point? Why did you keep him? What's the point of him still being here?
For cover to the cover.
There didn't seem a point. If the only reason for me he's here is just to cover Maddison if he's injured, and now here's his chance. So I think we should put him in. Obviously, Ange has turned to Højbjerg off the bench in that position most of the time this season. So there is an argument to say he will play Højbjerg, but I think most of the time it's been when we're losing, when we're winning, and to see out games. I can't remember too many times where we've been losing and he's taken off Maddison for Højbjerg. Maybe Liverpool?
Sheffield United? Did he do it in Sheffield United?
Maybe Sheffield. I don't think. Did he take Maddison for him? I can't remember.
Because he moved Kulu into the middle at Sheffield United, didn't he?
Yeah. He did move Kulu into the middle. I can't remember. I think, didn't we finish the game with Kulu and Maddison in the middle, I think, in that
Potentially.
Game? So whether he puts Højbjerg or Bentancur even potentially into an attacking midfield position, I just feel like it's unnecessary to do. I think if you've got an attacking midfield already there with the creativity, I know Højbjerg has been playing well, so you might argue he deserves a start right now, but that's just not his position. I want an attacking player in that position, unless he's thinking you put Højbjerg in the 6 and maybe move Basuma there. But again, I would rather just have a creative attacking player there. So we're putting Lo Celso in from the start, and it's a big opportunity for him because hasn't really shined in his cameo so far this season, even though he had a good preseason. So big opportunity for him.
In terms of that though, like, is that what you want to see? Or would you prefer, like for me, I think I would probably prefer to see Kulusevski move into the middle and then Bryan Hill out wide.
I'd prefer Lo Celso because he's a more natural central player. He's played there for Argentina. We see what he can do. He played there in pre-season. And I think I'd rather him there. I'd rather see Lo Celso there and Kulusevski keep his place on the right. I think that would give us a bit more creativity, in my opinion. So that's what I'd rather see if it was up to me.
Yeah, I'll probably see the other way with Kulusevski moving into the middle and maybe Brennan Johnson on the right and Bryan Hill on the left. I'd probably do that if I was the manager, but this is what we think will happen, and that's Basuma Sarr and Lo Celso in the middle three. On the right-hand side is Dejan Kulusevski.
Yeah, of course. Such a hard worker. Obviously got the goal against Chelsea with a bit of luck, but was having a good game up until things started to go against us. So he's going to be crucial in this game for sure when it comes to breaking down a low block with his ball retention and ability to keep the ball in tight spaces, especially against, I think, Ait-Nouri is going to be on that side. So quite a physical,
good
pacey left back. So, but I do think he's got his flaws defensively. So I think hopefully Kulusevski can take advantage of that.
Obviously, in the number 9 will be the captain, Heung-min Son, and we're going to need him to be at his clinical best this weekend, aren't we?
100%. Obviously, Craig Dawson has been in fairly good form this season. I think they've also got Max Kilman and Totti Gomez if they're playing a back 3. So up against a back 3, you could argue it could be a difficult day for Sonny, but we know he's clever enough to find the little spaces in the box. All he needs is a sniff of goal. And he can put away those chances. So it's going to be a difficult game. I think it's 3 physical defenders, but if he can just be clever enough to find those spaces, then Son can be decisive on the day.
And then to finish off the starting 11 on the left-hand side, we're going to go for Brennan Johnson, who's been extremely unlucky so far in a Spurs shirt. I mean, given his first start against Arsenal, goes off on the hour mark injured. Given his second start against Chelsea and goes off after half an hour with the red card. So he looked really bright, didn't he, at the start of that Chelsea game? So more of the same, please.
Yeah, I completely agree. And he's going to be probably up against Nelson Semedo on that side, so another pacey right back who's on his day good, but definitely has his flaws defensively. And if Johnson can get a run at him and find some sort of space, I do envisage him getting some joy. Also, I think Johnson, because he's got those predatory instincts, could be very decisive in the penalty area if we're taking long shots and he can pounce on rebounds and things like that. That could be very crucial as well. So could be a big day. So hopefully is the first game we see Johnson for more than an hour in a game.
Let's hope that'll be nice.
That'll be it.
So let's run through that lineup with you guys one more time. This is our predicted lineup for the Tottenham against Wolves at Molineux. So we got Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro right back, Ben Davies left back with a middle 2 of Eric Dyer and Ashley Phillips. In the midfield 3, we've got Yves Bissouma, Pape Matar and Giovanni Lo Celso. On the left, Brennan Johnson. On the right, Deki. And then up front, Heung-min Son. The predictions, Sim's going for 1-0 to Spurs. I'm going for 2-1 to Spurs. Who's going to get the goal for you?
Who's going to get the goal? I am going to go for Sonny.
Yeah, I'm going for 2-1, and I'm going to go for Sonny and Brennan Johnson to get on the score sheet as well. Brennan Johnson with his first goal for the football club. Let's hope so. Me and Sim are going to be up at Molineux tomorrow, bright and early, 12:30 kickoff. Let's start off the weekend with 3 points. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.